While big businesses are getting back to making big money in this tough economy, small business is still hurting. New data showing optimism dropping sharply. So will small business lead us to a double dip, or will big business lead us to a recovery? CNBC's Steve Leisman joins us now with a look. Steve.
Thanks, Melissa. The differences in the outlook between big and small business couldn't be greater. You wouldn't even know they were talking about the same economy. A new survey from the National Federation of Independent Business shows small business increasingly downbeat, downright depressed on the future, with the NFIB's Small Business Optimism Index declining by 3.2 points in June, giving up most of the gains from April and May. The decline in the outlook among small business owners comes as big business optimism, as gauged by the CEO Roundtable, has surged and really held on to the gains in the second quarter. Big business optimism showing up in the profits outlook and was on display this morning in a CNBC interview with Michael Ward, CEO of CSX, which reported robust earnings.
Really seeing this gradual recovery, which we're very encouraged about. And as we see it with the markets we serve, we think we're going to continue to see strength throughout the remainder of this year.
Take a look at this. The two types of business executives are far apart in the details of their outlook. What we did here is we took the CEO Roundtable and made it comparable to NFIB. On the details portion, 75% of executives responding to the Business Roundtable survey on net see higher sales in the next 6 months. Small business owners look for a decline in sales. Differences are wide also, as you can see there in the outlook for capital spending and for hiring in the next 6 months. Small business financing troubles, well, that may be one reason for the gulf between the two. Big business can access capital markets. They don't have to go just to the banks. New regulatory changes could be tougher on small businesses, especially if the big business has an army of accountants and lawyers to navigate their way through. Small business, well, they're pretty much on their own. Big business, meanwhile, is wired to the world. Exports have been a big part of the turnaround in the economy. We've never seen a gulf like this, so it's hard to know which matters more for the outcome of the economy. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke was pretty definitive yesterday that the recovery needed support from small business. Yet there are others who contend that orders from large business will eventually flow down to the smaller ones, and that will sustain the recovery. Take your pick, Melissa.
Okay, we will. Steve, stick with us. So who is right about the economy? Pessimistic small business or optimistic big business? And what does it mean for the economy as a whole? Joining us now is Milton Ezrati, senior economist at Lord Abbett, and Richard DeCaser, president at Woodley Park Research. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Milton, let me start with you. Is it possible that this small business pessimism is a lagging indicator? That, you know, things have to physically get better and before they're going to feel better. They have to see it sort of trickle down the same way that consumer confidence, the consumer kind of says they don't feel good about things, but they go out and spend anyway. That seems to be a lagging indicator, even though it's supposed to foreshadow. It really doesn't. What do you think?
Well, I think in this particular instance, small business is the lagging indicator for two reasons. One is the problems we had in the recession were financial, so the recovery is going to come from the top down, and that's going to affect big business more. The other thing is this very uncertain legislative climate we have. It weighs more heavily, as earlier comments suggested, it weighs much more heavily on small business than on large. They can't plan.
Yeah, you really see that, Richard. Taxes and regulations pops up all the time, but so does sales, and so does employment. Richard, the Business Roundtable, big business, employs about 12 million workers, according to recent reports. Overall employment is about 130 million. Is small business going to fill that gap, or am I missing something here?
No, I don't think they are, at least not in the near term. But I would go back to the point just made, which is I think at this particular moment, small business indicators are lagging indicators. Now, in particular, if you look at these latest survey results, it was expectations, not current conditions. Employment has actually improved somewhat, but it's expectations which have deteriorated the most. And those tend to reflect, the best predictor is the stock market. So what small businesses are responding to are events which have transpired in the past, and they've been very skittish, especially due to financial conditions deteriorating. In my view, you'll see this turn around in the next month, and they're still dealing with what others have already moved on past, which is...
You know, Richard and Milton, Steve Leisman has been shaking his head as you both say that you see small business as a lagging indicator. Steve, am I right? You disagree with that?
Well, not disagree in the sense that it could be this time around, but if you look at the past two recovery, small business has really led big business, and that's
Who employs more, Steve? Isn't it small businesses?
What's that?
Who employs
they
more
employ
people
more,
in the U.S.?
but the employees of small business earn less per capita or make less money in revenue per capita than the others, which makes me wonder as to whether or not there's some broader structural shift going on where maybe at the end of the day here, because of what's happening and the way the economy is changing, we may end up with more employment at large businesses.
But, Steve, you say that they've led the way out in the past. They've led the way out.
Upturns, yeah.
But in their sentiment or in their actual actions? Because what we're seeing is that a lot of what's negative is their sentiment, that they don't see things getting better. That doesn't mean that they aren't actually getting better. They just don't feel good about it.
Right. Well, all I can tell you is when I look at the gray part of the chart that shows where the recession is, right, that small business, the NFIB optimism index turns up before the other indices for large business.
And Milton, I mean, look, small business is the biggest job creator, the biggest new job creator. I mean, that's where the torque comes from. Large businesses tend to be job reducers, don't they?
Yeah, if business doesn't turn around on the small side, we're not going to see the employment response. Now, I believe we will, and it will be a lag, but that's where we're going to see the employment.
What do we do about it?
And they're the only ones who employ in a big way in this economy.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to ask Richard about this one issue that small businesses are bringing up, and that is, and the Fed has addressed it as well, that they don't have enough access to capital, that they can't take out the loans that they need to grow their businesses right now.
Right.
Richard, how much of that is true? How much is just the fact that we're in a very different environment, and perhaps we shouldn't be going back to those heady days of 2006, 2007, where it was so incredibly to get a loan for a small, incredibly easy to get a small loan.
Sure, we don't want to go back there, but we'd like to get halfway back there, and we're not there yet. And to Steve's point, if you go back and look at the last, not the last recession, but the 1990-91 recovery, there are some parallels there. We saw the small business sector, again, exceptionally reliant on bank funding, really struggling to get some traction. And that is, I think, very much analogous to where we are here in 2010.
But Milton, you know, let me just pick up on that real quickly, Larry, which is that if we could clear out what's stuffing up the books on the community banks, you might then have a turnaround in small business financing. But some of these community banks are so laden with the commercial real estate problem, and one of the things we heard yesterday at the Fed Small Business Conference is that the banks are so busy doing workouts right now, they don't even have the personnel to review new loans.
Well, those are good points, but Milton, I just want to go, look, aren't small businesses worried about the cost of doing business and the cost of hiring? They're worried about the tax costs. They're worried about the health care costs in particular. There's a lot of thousands of pages of regulations, Milton, and no one knows how those regulations...
I'm not sure they want to take loans out. I'm not sure they feel confident enough to demand loans. I don't know that loan demand...
They don't know how these programs are going to be implemented, and they're very worried that the cost of doing business is going sky high.
Head count at a time when you've got all that uncertainty.
That's right. It would be very easy to exaggerate the financing question here. They still have quite a bit of cash on their balance sheets. Yes, they'll need the financing, but I don't think that's the main thing. I think it's this uncertainty, and I don't think they can plan, and they're certainly not ready to hire when they don't know what it's going to cost them to maintain that new employee or employees.